It began with a glimmer in the sky, a faint spark on the radar that no one noticed at first, but it grew larger with each passing hour. The satellites didn't know what it was. No one on Earth did. The faint anomaly quickly expanded into something far more concerning. By the time the governments of the world took notice, it was too late to prepare. The object wasn't an asteroid, it wasn't a rogue satellite, it wasn't anything that could be explained by Earth's limited knowledge of the cosmos. It was something far darker, far more sinister than anyone could imagine. The object was a fleet, and as the strange ships drew closer to Earth, they moved with terrifying precision. As if guided by some invisible hand, their massive forms loomed against the backdrop of space, moving in synchrony like a swarm of predatory insects drawn to their prey. The ships appeared at first as mere blips on radar, but as they came closer, the world's leaders could no longer deny the presence of an invading force. Each ship a monolith of sleek black metal. They were as large as cities, silent and menacing, floating like shadows in the bright sky. Panic spread like wildfire across the globe. Whispers of alien invasion turned into a full-blown panic as Earth's military forces scrambled to respond to the unknown threat. Radar stations failed to get a clear lock on the fleet's movements, as though their technology was being blocked or manipulated. No one could make sense of it. No one could reach the invaders, and no one knew what they wanted. All Earth knew was that they were coming, and there was nowhere to run. And then came the message. It was a voice unlike anything humanity had ever heard. It wasn't human. The language was unfamiliar and alien, but the voice was clear, cold, and filled with authority. The transmission cut through every frequency available in every corner of the world, and the words that followed chilled the blood of every listener across the globe. The speaker identified itself as the High Commander of the Tereth Empire, a vast interstellar force that had conquered hundreds of worlds. The voice spoke in perfect English, its tone distant, yet somehow carrying the weight of an entire civilization's history. The words were simple, but their meaning was unmistakable. The Empire had arrived, and Earth had no place in the universe, but as a footnote in the Tereth's expansion. The message was blunt and to the point, a terrifying ultimatum that left no room for debate. Leave or perish. The Tereth Empire had no need for explanations or diplomacy. Earth's existence was a blip in their galactic plans. The High Commander declared that humanity's survival was not something to be negotiated. It was something that would be given or taken as the Empire saw fit. The message continued. The High Commander spoke of the Empire's vast technological superiority, the annihilation of countless civilizations who had dared to resist, and the inevitable fate of any race that refused to understand the futility of defiance. The Tereth demanded that Earth's inhabitants flee immediately or face extinction. The invasion was already in motion, and Earth's only choice was to evacuate. And then the broadcast ended as suddenly as it had started, leaving Earth's leaders paralyzed with fear, confusion, and uncertainty. The world stood still as the ships hovered above them, watching, waiting, and for the first time humanity realized just how small it truly was against the vastness of the cosmos. The countdown had begun, and humanity had no idea how to stop it. The message had echoed through every home, every street, every corner of the Earth, and now it was real. The Tereth Empire was not a myth, not a distant fantasy, but an undeniable force hanging in the sky above. The leaders of Earth, the ones entrusted with the fate of billions, could do nothing but stand frozen in a mix of disbelief and terror. The skies, once the domain of human imagination and exploration, were now ruled by a fleet of unimaginable power, and no one knew how to fight back. The message was simple: leave or perish. But the implications were anything but. No one could fathom how to even begin preparing for an enemy like this. Earth had never faced anything close to the kind of devastation the Tereth promised. For days, world leaders convened, arguing, debating, each nation scrambling to save its people. Some began to prepare for mass evacuations, attempting to escape to other planets. But the Tereth's warning was clear: there was no time. Earth had 1 month, just 1 month, to make its decision, and after that, the consequences would be swift, brutal, and final. The streets of every major city grew filled with chaos as panic spread like wildfire. People clamored for escape, desperately trying to leave their homes, boarding overcrowded ships bound for nowhere. Governments scrambled to issue orders, but each directive seemed to only make things worse. In the midst of it all, scientists and engineers worked around the clock to find a solution, but every idea seemed futile in the face of such overwhelming power. Beneath the surface of Earth, a different kind of resistance was quietly beginning to stir. A group of scientists, military experts, and intelligence officers from around the globe came together in secret, determined to find a way to fight back. They knew they couldn't stand up to the Tsarith's technology directly, but they believed that humanity's greatest strength, its adaptability, might be their only hope. Rumors began to spread that a group of scientists had found something, an ancient power hidden deep within the Earth itself, something that could be their salvation if they could unlock its secrets in time. But what exactly that power was, and whether it could even be harnessed, remained a mystery. In the meantime, tensions escalated. The world's governments bickered over their next move. Some argued for immediate surrender, hoping that perhaps the Tsarith would show mercy to those who accepted their fate. Others wanted to fight, despite knowing the odds were stacked impossibly high. As humanity teetered on the brink of collapse, the Tsarith, seemingly without urgency, waited in the sky, their massive ships watching over the planet like vultures waiting for their prey to make the first move. As the deadline for Earth's decision loomed, some small pockets of resistance began to form, despite the overwhelming fear and uncertainty. Human ingenuity began to shine in unexpected ways. People found ways to survive in the face of utter destruction, building shelters, rationing supplies, and organizing themselves in defiance of the hopelessness that surrounded them. A sense of unity, once fractured by borders and divisions, began to grow. People who had once been divided by nationality or religion started to see each other as brothers and sisters against a common enemy. But the clock was ticking, and as the days passed, one question remained. Would Earth flee, or would they stand and face the might of the Tsarith? The answer seemed clear. There was no place for a fight, no chance against such overwhelming power. Yet, in the darkest hours of human despair, there was a flicker of hope. The world was not ready to surrender just yet, and perhaps, just perhaps, there was more to humanity than the Tsarith could ever imagine. The countdown had begun, and with it, the fate of Earth hung in the balance. As Earth spiraled toward panic, a small but determined group of scientists, military strategists, and engineers met in the shadows, operating in secret. While the world seemed paralyzed by the Tsarith's ultimatum, they refused to accept the idea of total surrender. They had seen something in the human spirit, an unyielding will to survive that no invader could ever truly comprehend. If they were going to fight back, they would need to uncover a power unlike anything Earth had ever used before. Time, however, was running out. Within the vast underground facilities of long-forgotten military research stations, deep beneath the Earth's surface, a team of scientists had stumbled upon something incredible. Ancient records, buried in the ruins of an ancient civilization, hinted at technology older than anything that Tsarith had seen. Powerful energy manipulation devices that could be weaponized in ways no one had ever imagined. These artifacts, which had been locked away for centuries, could alter the course of the planet's future if they could be activated in time. But they had no idea how long the Tsarith would wait before bringing down the full force of their fleet. Desperate, the team worked tirelessly to decipher the ancient texts and reconstruct the complex energy systems embedded in these artifacts. Weeks passed with little progress. But then, just as hope seemed to be slipping away, a breakthrough came. One of the scientists, a quiet woman named Dr. Ilara Hayes, uncovered a hidden mechanism within the ancient technology, a power source that, when combined with human ingenuity, could disrupt the Tsarith's advanced weapons. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a method of turning their greatest advantage, their technological supremacy, against them. Earth might not have the resources to fight on equal terms, but they had something far more dangerous: the ability to adapt, to outthink and outmaneuver. While the research team worked feverishly to refine the energy manipulation system, a series of smaller resistance cells began to emerge across the planet. These cells were formed not by soldiers or generals, but by ordinary people, engineers, teachers, farmers, and civilians who had seen the Tereth's ships hovering in the sky and decided they would not go down without a fight. They began to coordinate attacks on Sereth's supply lines and patrol ships, using guerrilla tactics and rudimentary weapons. In the beginning, these attacks were small and largely ineffective, but they sent a message. Humanity had not simply rolled over. They were not helpless. Then, on the other side of the world, an unlikely ally emerged. A Sereth commander, known only as Zoreth, had begun to question the invaders' methods. Unlike the cold, unfeeling leaders of the Empire, Zoreth had observed humanity in a way few others had. He saw their resilience, their adaptability, and most of all, he saw their refusal to surrender. Zoreth was not blind to the overwhelming might of the Sereth, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they had underestimated the humans. In secret, he reached out to a group of dissidents within the Empire, those who also believed that humanity was not so easily subdued. This act of rebellion, though small, sent shockwaves through the Sereth hierarchy. Zoreth's doubts began to spread, and with them, a ripple of dissent that could be the key to tipping the balance of power. However, the Tereth were not known for mercy, and Zoreth knew his actions might very well lead to his execution. Despite the challenges and mounting threats, the resistance on Earth continued to grow. With Zoreth's information, Earth's underground scientists were able to refine the ancient energy technology more quickly. The weapon was almost ready, but the question remained: would humanity be able to launch it in time before the Tereth completed their invasion? The stakes were higher than ever, and the world now stood at the brink of an impossible decision. Would humanity succeed in harnessing the power of the ancients and turn the tide of war? Or would the Tereth crush the resistance before it could even get started? The Tereth Empire had waited long enough. With Earth's resistance still in its infancy, they launched their first full-scale assault, a brutal demonstration of their overwhelming power. The sky above major cities darkened as Tereth warships descended like vultures, their sleek forms blotting out the sun. Their arrival was swift, and their attack was even swifter. Humanity's military forces, though brave, were no match for the devastating force that Tereth unleashed. The cities were the first targets, their skyscrapers crumbling under the weight of plasma blasts and energy beams that sliced through entire buildings like they were paper. The air was thick with the hum of destruction, a sound unlike any heard before. Thousands died in the first few hours, their screams drowned out by the roar of the Tereth weaponry. The resistance was still in its infancy, unable to mount any substantial defense against the Empire's full might. Those who fought back were crushed quickly. Tanks turned to molten slag, fighter jets reduced to burning wreckage. Amidst the devastation, humanity's resolve was tested as never before. It seemed as though the Tereth would annihilate Earth with the same casual ease they had destroyed so many other worlds. But humanity, even in the face of overwhelming odds, refused to go quietly. In the chaos of the invasion, one small group of soldiers and resistance fighters made an audacious decision. They would not wait to be overrun. Instead, they would take the fight to the Tereth directly. They had learned from their earlier skirmishes that while they had no chance against the superior technology of the Empire, they could exploit one major weakness: Sereth arrogance. The invaders believed that their superiority was unquestionable, that no one could ever challenge their might. The humans, determined to show otherwise, would launch a surprise attack that would shake the Empire's confidence to its core. A strike force was assembled, a ragtag group of soldiers, civilians, and scientists who had managed to avoid the initial bombardments. They had a singular goal: to destroy one of the Tereth warships. It was a foolhardy mission, and most knew it would end in death, but they did not care. They had to act quickly or lose everything. Under the cover of night, they infiltrated an abandoned military base near the coast, a location thought to be safe from the Tsareth attack. There they had learned a Tsareth ship had been temporarily grounded for repairs, an opportunity they could not afford to miss. The humans had no advanced weapons, but they had something else: ingenuity. Using old improvised explosives and a stolen Tsareth energy disruptor, they set out to plant their devices aboard the ship, targeting its power core. The mission was dangerous and fraught with obstacles. As they crept closer to the ship, the group encountered several Tsareth soldiers, alien warriors armed with plasma rifles and shimmering energy shields. A firefight erupted, and for a few heart-stopping minutes, it seemed that their mission might be doomed. But through sheer determination and quick thinking, the humans managed to outflank their alien enemies, using the environment to their advantage. They took cover in the shadows, striking quickly and retreating just as fast, always staying one step ahead. At last, they reached the heart of the ship's power core. With no time to spare, they planted the explosives and set the countdown. They could hear the Tsareth approaching, their footsteps heavy with the intent to destroy. The team fled the ship just as the countdown reached 0, and in an instant, the Tsareth ship exploded in a brilliant fireball, lighting up the sky like a second sun. For a brief moment, humanity had won. The explosion sent shockwaves through the Tsareth fleet, causing widespread confusion. The invaders hadn't expected humans to possess the audacity to attack one of their ships, especially not with such limited resources. The Tsareth fleet commander's voice crackled over the communication channels, filled with a rare hint of uncertainty. This small, seemingly insignificant victory had shattered the Empire's perception of Earth's potential. The humans had struck a blow, and it was one that Tsareth had not anticipated. But this was only the beginning. As the human resistance celebrated their success, they knew that the Tsareth would not back down. This victory had only stirred the storm. Now the true battle for Earth would begin. The Empire would not forgive such an insult. The fight was far from over, and humanity had no illusions about the danger they faced. Yet, for the first time since the invasion, hope began to take root. The humans had shown the Tsareth that they could fight back, and that, in itself, was a victory. The Tsareth Empire had long prided itself on its might, its invincibility, and its unbroken record of conquest. They had wiped out countless civilizations, each one crumbling beneath their superior technology and merciless tactics. Earth, they believed, would be no different. Their ships had descended without haste. Their weapons had obliterated everything in their path. And yet, in the aftermath of the first assault, something unexpected began to stir within the ranks of the Empire. The explosion that tore through the Tsareth warship had shaken the Empire more than the High Commander had anticipated. It was a symbol of defiance, one that, even in its smallness, struck at the heart of the Tsareth's pride. Humanity, despite being outclassed technologically, had done something they had never expected. They fought back. It wasn't a fight they could ignore. It wasn't a resistance they could easily crush with brute force. Inside the Tsareth command vessel, the High Commander paced nervously, the shockwave from the destroyed warship still rippling through the fleet's communication channels. His advisors stood around him, their faces hardened with the coldness that was typical of the Empire's elite. "This is a trivial matter," one of them scoffed. "A single ship destroyed by primitive tactics. They will cower before us soon enough." But the High Commander did not respond with his usual confidence. Instead, his mind was clouded with doubt, a rare and troubling emotion for a being of his stature. The humans had done something they had never done before, something that, even now, gnawed at the back of the High Commander's thoughts. They had struck, not just with weapons, but with cunning, with creativity, and with a surprising tenacity. It was this tenacity that had begun to cause a fracture within the Empire's leadership. A new voice had begun to echo within the ranks of the Tsareth officers, one that was growing louder with each passing day. Commander Zoreth, once a loyal and unquestioning member of the Empire, had begun questioning the validity of the Empire's stance on Earth. He had been one of the highest-ranking officers assigned to oversee the conquest, but his experiences with the humans had shaken him to his core. Unlike many of his fellow commanders, Zorath had seen Earth's inhabitants up close, and he had witnessed their resilience in ways that unsettled him. Zorath's thoughts had been clouded with an unsettling realization. Humanity was not as primitive as the Empire had believed. They were not simply another species to be wiped out and replaced. They were a force that could not be ignored. His doubts about the Empire's methodology had started as whispers, but they had grown louder with each passing day. Now, Zorath had begun secretly reaching out to other Tsareth leaders, those who were also disillusioned with the Empire's methods. They had seen what the humans were capable of, and some among them believed the Empire's destructive campaign was a mistake. The more Zorath spoke out, the more he found allies in unexpected places. High-ranking officials who had once followed the Empire's orders without question now began to listen to his arguments. The humans, they agreed, were not the helpless prey they had assumed. Earth's resistance was becoming more than just a nuisance. It was a real threat. In a darkened command chamber aboard one of the Tsareth flagship vessels, Zorath addressed a small but growing group of like-minded individuals. They gathered in secret, knowing that any sign of dissent could lead to their immediate execution. If we continue this invasion, we will not only destroy Earth, Zorath said quietly, we will fracture the very core of our empire. The humans are capable of things we have not seen before, things that may change the course of our conquest, not just on Earth, but across the galaxy. We must rethink our strategy. His words resonated with many in the room. They had never been allowed to question the will of the Empire, but now the truth was undeniable. Earth was not an easy target. The humans, with their unpredictable tactics and relentless drive, were not simply a race to be conquered. They were a challenge, one that could potentially alter the Empire's entire trajectory. Zorath's rebellion, though small, was a crack in the Tsareth's unshakable armor. The more the Tsareth struggled to defeat the humans, the more Zorath's voice, and the voices of his allies, gained strength. Their rebellion would grow in the shadows, feeding on the Empire's uncertainty until it became impossible to ignore. The High Commander could feel the shift, a quiet murmur growing within his ranks, and for the first time, the might of the Tsareth Empire seemed uncertain. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had made the Tsareth question their own dominance. And as the weeks passed, the High Commander began to realize that Earth was no longer just a planet to conquer. It had become something far more dangerous, a symbol of defiance, a challenge that the Tsareth had never expected. The Tsareth Empire, once united in its mission to annihilate Earth, now found itself at a crossroads. Would they continue down the path of total destruction, or would they have to face the terrifying possibility that humanity might not only survive, but thrive in the face of their invasion? The sky above Earth had darkened, not just with the shadow of the Tsareth fleet, but with the weight of uncertainty. Despite the initial devastation and overwhelming force of the Empire's assault, something had begun to stir within humanity, a shift that no one could have predicted. Earth was fighting back, not just with weapons and resistance, but with something far more dangerous: unity and ingenuity. In the underground labs, Dr. Ilara Hayes and her team of scientists had finally managed to activate the ancient technology they had uncovered. The energy manipulation system was still in its early stages, but it had the potential to disrupt the Tsareth's most formidable weapon, their energy shields. The power to cut through their impenetrable defenses was within their grasp, and yet, time was running out. The Tsareth had already begun their next phase of the invasion, sending their full forces to crush the human resistance once and for all. With the Tsareth fleet hovering over key cities, humanity's forces had gathered. A large-scale counteroffensive was in the works, an operation to push the invaders back. But despite the ingenuity and courage displayed by the resistance cells across the globe, it was clear that Earth was still no match for the Empire's overwhelming might. The Tsareth had resources that humans couldn't hope to match, and their weapons were devastating. In every battle, the humans had fought bravely, but each victory felt like a fleeting moment in a war they were losing. Then came the unexpected. Zorath, the Tsareth commander, whose doubts about the Empire's conquest had grown into a full-blown rebellion, made his move. In a bold, dangerous act of defiance, he sent a transmission to Earth. The message was brief, its contents both cryptic and urgent. Asterisk, the Empire underestimates you. You must strike now, or all will be lost. Asterisk. Zorath's transmission sent shockwaves through the resistance. The humans were stunned by the offer of help from within the Tsareth's own ranks. To many, it seemed like a trap, a calculated attempt to deceive Earth's forces. But for a few, Zorath's words carried weight. He was not the first Tsareth to question the invasion, and if he was willing to risk his life to defy the Empire, there had to be some truth in his message. Dr. Hayes and the lead scientists analyzed Zorath's message with extreme caution, looking for any signs of trickery. But as they worked, one thing became clear. They had no choice. They had no time to debate. Earth's survival depended on taking the fight to the Tsareth now. Zorath's warning, though brief, revealed a weakness in the Empire's strategy. The Tsareth had placed too much confidence in their technological superiority and had neglected one crucial element: human adaptability. As Zorath's message spread among Earth's resistance leaders, a decision was made. The time had come for humanity to act on the knowledge they had gained, to push the Tsareth back, not through brute force, but through the unexpected. They would use the Tsareth's greatest strength against them, exploiting the one thing the Empire had never considered: human resourcefulness. The ancient energy technology was ready. It was still unstable, its full potential not yet realized, but it could disrupt the Tsareth's energy shields long enough to turn the tide in humanity's favor. The resistance forces gathered, their ranks swelling with each new recruit, and the operation was set into motion. Earth's counteroffensive would be launched from several fronts simultaneously, each one targeting a key weakness in the Tsareth's fleet. Zorath's role in the plan was as critical as it was dangerous. If he truly wanted to aid the humans, he would need to guide them to the heart of the Tsareth command ship, where the most powerful energy cores were located. He would provide them with the tactical information needed to breach the Empire's defenses. In exchange, Zorath's fate would be sealed. If the humans failed, he would be executed by his own people, his betrayal considered unforgivable. But Zorath was prepared to face whatever consequences awaited him. He had already crossed a line with the Empire, and now there was no going back. His fate was no longer tied to the Empire's success, but to the survival of Earth. The time for hesitation had passed. As the operation began, the first waves of humanity's forces moved into position, ready to strike. The Tsareth, still overconfident, had not fully realized the threat that was coming. The Empire was about to experience something it had never encountered before: humanity's full potential unleash, a force unlike anything they had ever faced. The tide was turning, and the Tsareth would soon learn that Earth was not a world to be conquered. It was a world to be reckoned with. The moment of reckoning had arrived, and Earth's resistance was ready. Despite the overwhelming odds stacked against them, despite the endless waves of Tsareth warships looming overhead, humanity had managed to put together a plan. Zorath's guidance, the ancient technology, and the sheer force of will of the people had created an unexpected hope, one that even the Tsareth Empire could not yet grasp. The first strikes were swift and targeted. Earth's forces, though outmatched in terms of technology, had learned to use the Tsareth's arrogance against them. The resistance had spent weeks sabotaging the Empire's weaker ships, placing improvised explosives, and disabling critical communications between their vessels. These small victories, often ignored by the Tsareth as insignificant skirmishes, were now becoming the building blocks of something much larger. Each successful attack chipped away at the invaders' confidence and momentum. Zorath, within the Empire's ranks, had provided invaluable intelligence. He had pinpointed critical weaknesses in the Tsareth's formation, gaps in their energy shield deployment, and vulnerabilities in their fleet's communication network. Using this information, Earth's forces began to exploit the Tereth's blind spots with precision. The first major success came when a small strike team, guided by Zoreth's intel, managed to infiltrate the command center of a Tereth flagship. Using the ancient energy disruptor, they temporarily knocked out the fleet's central command, throwing the Tereth into disarray. For a few crucial hours, the invaders were scrambling to regain control, and humanity struck with everything they had. The resistance fighters, now emboldened by the success, launched a coordinated assault on the largest Tereth-controlled city. Using guerrilla tactics and a series of devastating cyber attacks, they created chaos within the heart of the Empire's occupation forces. Earth's soldiers, armed with newly developed technology from Dr. Hayes' team, used the ancient energy disruptors to cut through the Tereth shields, allowing them to strike at the core of the invaders' power. It was the first true battle where humanity had the advantage, and the Tereth, for the first time, were forced to retreat. But Zoreth's role was far from over. He knew that this victory was fleeting if the Tereth could rally their forces quickly. He had one final piece of information that could turn the tide for good: the location of the Tereth's central command station, where the heart of the fleet's power lay. If humanity could strike there, the entire Empire's control over Earth would crumble, potentially forcing a ceasefire or even a surrender. Zoreth's communication came through in the dead of night, a coded message intercepted by resistance operatives. Asterisk. The core is vulnerable. Strike now, or the Empire will regroup and finish what it started. You have one chance. Asterisk. His words were sharp, urgent, but they carried the weight of certainty. The Tereth were struggling, but they were not beaten yet. The final assault was set into motion, a multi-pronged attack on the Tereth's most heavily fortified location. Resistance forces gathered on all fronts, moving with precision, knowing that this would be the moment that determined Earth's fate. A fleet of human ships, outfitted with the same energy disruptors that had been so effective in the ground war, was ready to make its way to the heart of the Tereth fleet. The attack was brutal. As Earth's forces converged on the command station, the Tereth responded with everything they had left. Waves of warships, countless ground troops, and orbital bombardments rained down, but the human resistance, bolstered by Zoreth's intel and the element of surprise, fought with an intensity that Tereth had never seen before. The humans were relentless, unwilling to accept defeat even in the face of overwhelming firepower. The battle raged for hours, the sounds of explosions, laser fire, and the cries of both sides echoing across the battleground. But as the tide of the conflict surged back and forth, something incredible happened. The Tereth's shields faltered. The disruptors were working, tearing through the once impenetrable energy fields, and one by one, the Tereth ships began to fall. Their commanders, still unsure of what had gone wrong, struggled to regain control, but it was too late. The human forces pressed forward, targeting the heart of the command station, the source of the Tereth's centralized control. As the final blow was struck, the Tereth fleet, their last line of defense shattered, fell into chaos. The resistance fighters, though battered and scarred from the long battle, had achieved the impossible. The heart of the Empire's power had been struck, and the Tereth no longer controlled the skies over Earth. The victory, though hard won, was not without sacrifice. Thousands of human lives had been lost, many of them in the final push to the command center. But for the first time since the invasion began, humanity had proved that they could stand against the might of the Tereth Empire. The resistance had shattered the illusion of invincibility that Tereth had once held so dearly. Zoreth's final message came through, soft but resolute. Asterisk, you have won. The Empire is in disarray. It is time to end this war. Asterisk. And with that, humanity's path to victory was clear. The Tereth Empire had underestimated Earth. Now, it was only a matter of time before the invaders would be forced to retreat. The fight for Earth was not over, but the first real hope for peace had arrived. The Tzareth Empire, once unshakable and supreme, was crumbling before humanity's tenacity. Their fleet, fractured and confused, struggled to reorganize in the wake of the assault on their command station. The heart of their military might had been struck, and now the galaxy's most powerful empire was beginning to feel the pressure of a force they had long underestimated. On Earth, the celebrations were quiet, tempered by the realization that the war was far from over. The destruction of the Tzareth command station was a monumental victory, but the invaders still controlled many of Earth's cities, and their troops were still entrenched in key areas around the world. While the Empire had lost its cohesion, their resolve remained as cold and unyielding as ever. The resistance fighters, though emboldened by their success, knew that this would be a fight to the finish. Zorath's final message had sent ripples through the Tzareth fleet, but it also raised more questions than answers. In the chaos of their internal disarray, factions began to form within the Tzareth ranks. Some officers, loyal to the Empire's cause, were determined to crush Earth's resistance once and for all. But others, influenced by Zorath's defection, began to question the legitimacy of the invasion itself. For the first time, cracks appeared in the Empire's unified front. This rift would prove to be their undoing. The leaders of Earth's resistance knew this was a rare opportunity. They quickly mobilized, using the momentum from their recent victories to push deeper into Tzareth-controlled territory. They launched coordinated offensives across the globe, targeting the remnants of the Empire's hold on the planet. Cities that had once been symbols of Tzareth power, London, New York, Tokyo, were liberated one by one. The human forces, emboldened by their recent success and supported by Zorath's intelligence, moved swiftly, striking at weakened Tzareth positions with precision. But it was not just the ground war that was shifting. In space, humanity's fleet had taken on a new, more powerful form. Dr. Hayes and her team had spent months refining the ancient technology that had disrupted the Tzareth's shields. Now, with the help of Zorath's insider knowledge, they had adapted the energy disruptors into full-fledged weapons capable of disabling entire fleets. These new ships, though smaller and less powerful than the Tzareth's gargantuan warships, were nimble and deadly. They made lightning-fast raids against the Tzareth's remaining fleet, crippling their ships before they could retaliate. As the Tzareth began to splinter, their command structure fell into disarray. What had once been a tightly controlled, singular force began to fracture into competing factions. Some Tzareth commanders, still loyal to the Empire, fought back fiercely, but others, weary of the war and disillusioned by Zorath's defection, began to question the validity of their mission. The Tzareth fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable force, was now a collection of disjointed, uncertain forces. On Earth, the final push was underway. Resistance fighters, led by Zorath from within the Tzareth ranks, gathered their strength for one last assault. Humanity's final victory was not just about military power. It was about the unwavering resolve of a species that had, against all odds, refused to be conquered. The Tzareth, for the first time, felt fear, not from the firepower of the humans, but from their ability to adapt, to surprise, and to fight back with an intensity that was beyond comprehension. As Earth's forces descended on the last of the Tzareth strongholds, the once mighty invaders found themselves overwhelmed. The humans, united in their cause, had become a force to be reckoned with. With each passing hour, the Tzareth retreated further, their once mighty empire now a fading shadow on the edge of the galaxy. In the final moments of the battle, as the last Tzareth stronghold fell, Zorath stood among the human leaders, watching the retreat of the Empire's forces. He had given everything to help Earth. His loyalty to his people had been broken, and he now faced the consequences of his rebellion. But it was worth it. The Tzareth had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. As the last remnants of the Tzareth fleet flood into the depths of space, Earth stood victorious. The invaders had been repelled, their empire shattered. The human race, scared by the invasion but stronger than ever, had proven that even the most formidable empire could be brought to its knees by the unyielding spirit of a united people. The victory over the Terith was not just a military one. It was a testament to the resilience of humanity, to the ability of a species to stand together in the face of overwhelming odds. The galaxy would never forget the day the Terith Empire fell, not because of their technology, but because of the relentless will of Earth's people. And as humanity looked to the stars, they knew that while this battle had been won, the war for their future had only just begun. But they were no longer just a world to conquer. They were a force in the galaxy, a people who had overcome the impossible.